The players that do the best in the end and come out healthy and successful are the ones that have a really good grasp on perspective. So it's 2020 and we're still getting these articles like this one about burnout in esports. And honestly, like, we see this in every single major esport, especially like CSGO. Overwatch has been under fire for it a lot. League of Legends, obviously, pretty much any major esport or franchised esport where the schedules are really tough for the players, traveling schedules, practice schedules, where these like professional teams are forcing like insane practice times and really just grueling schedules across the board in high stress gaming environments where there's a lot of money involved, a lot of pressure, a lot of fans, things like that. I think obviously the first thing you can look at, like articles like these are looking at, is the schedules that these players are under. Clearly there's a lot of stress on them in regards to their playing schedules, practice schedules, all the press that they have to do and things like that. Obviously, I think one of the main complaints is that people want to bring that down to make it less grueling, but I don't think that really addresses the problem. And I don't think that's totally reasonable to expect these teams and franchises to do. I think a good way to start assessing the problem is to take a look on the ground floor at what it takes to create an esports star, a championship player, and so forth. The thing is, it takes a really unique person to be able to compete at the highest level in esports. But it also takes a really unique person to cope well and thrive in a highly public environment against like constant media attention and pressure to present yourself as a personality and cultivate brand growth in the esports scene. So now try and find a championship player and then also someone that can become a brand and not crumble under the pressure of that. And you got to have both of those things put together. Now also expect that person to be pleasant, polite, easy to get along with, and incredibly mature in both a business environment, in a friendship environment, and a esports competition environment. What you're doing is searching for needles in a haystack. And the thing is, mental wellness is an incredibly complicated landscape that's hard to navigate even as an adult or teenager that's not involved in extreme stress sports. Now consider the fact that gaming tends to call to outsiders and introverted personalities. Now consider that becoming a champion in these esports requires these players to double down on those aspects of their personality. It requires them often to push away important social activity away from the game and getting out often for the sake of practicing. It's like a lab experiment where you put in a little bit of this and then a little bit of that, and in the end you just end up having something highly flammable. And it's not surprising that sometimes it blows up. But the thing is, these players don't just need a therapist. It's not just about things like exercise and diet and like mental wellness through therapy that these players need. Though each of those things is incredibly important and they all should be partaking in these activities. What I think these players lack most, which is probably due to them being incredibly young though, is perspective. I think perspective might be the single most important thing to a player in these circumstances, under these pressures. And the thing is, sometimes perspective can only come through having incredible mentors and reading the right books, participating in the right practices. These players need to spend time developing their minds outside of the game, not just outside of the game, but outside of interaction with the players on their teams, outside of the teams and the organizers and the coaches. Basically, they need to exercise their minds in different ways that have nothing to do with the sport that they're playing. And this isn't a professional sports psychology take. There are plenty of people that can give you that. These are just some of my thoughts, taking my experience into account with mental wellness and competition. See, players spend all their time practicing to compete in game, but what they're missing is a focus on longevity, resilience, or understanding, how to manage themselves and be able to take the curveballs that the industry and the sport are going to throw at them in the end. A strong mind is something that you build. It's not something you really discover. Perspective is cultivated. And all of the esports coaches and therapists in the world can help you, but they cannot build it for you. I think that the journey to self-betterment is something that you alone can take. Yes, others can give you tips and help point you in the right direction, but in the end, only you can walk the path because no one else is inside your mind. And the hard truth is that to be a championship player, you have to be the strongest. So if you're a competitor with dreams of championships and esports fame, take a second to think about how you're cultivating your mind, because it's not just about the hours put in. It's not just about the endless nights that you spent practicing. Don't tunnel vision on just preparing for competition. I've seen that happen a lot, especially in the Fortnite community. I've personally known people that have been grinding and grinding and grinding hours for those open tournaments, and it led to nothing but mental ruin. You need to invest in your mental well-being, and it's not just for the sake of temporary happiness. Your mind is like a machine, and when it's operating at full capacity, you'll perform better in-game as well. Start by picking up some sports psychology books. Examine your personal philosophy. I think most of all, think hard about what you really want and why you want it. Because something that a lot of people don't consider is that no matter how bad you want to win, this career might not be for you. It's not just about the mindset in game. You need to be focused and grounded in reality as well. The players that do the best in the end and come out healthy and successful are the ones that have a really good grasp on perspective. I'm honestly not surprised that burnout occurs in esports. I'm incredibly surprised that it doesn't happen more and that we don't talk about it more. Because these kids that are competing, a lot of these teams are putting them through a blender with very little regard or understanding of how to keep them safe and healthy and cultivating longevity. I understand creating a championship player is incredibly hard. Turning them into a marketable brand is even harder. Then in turn, making money off that brand is even harder. In the end, the demands on that player will test their limits. And as that player, you need to be ready for that. And you need to be prepared to meet that head on. I'm not saying that you can't achieve these things. I'm saying that you need to want it more than anything else. You need to have built a house around your mind that is incredibly strong. You need to have a strong work ethic, but you also need to have a really grounded perspective. You need to have a good sense of self-confidence, and I think most important of all, an understanding of yourself. You need to have spent a lot of time in your own mind thinking, trying to understand what you want, why you want it, how to get there, and studying a broad range of things, not just how to press the keys better, how to aim better, how to perform better in the games, not just strategy. You need to be thinking about how you live your life. And I think if you have a strong grasp on that going into esports, you will come out far better and you will understand how to perform to your max capacity, as well as cultivate a brand around yourself as a prominent esports player. In turn, retain a healthy mind that will lead to happiness in the end. So yeah, those are just some of my thoughts on player burnout in esports. I think it's a really complicated issue. I don't think it gets solved with one video or just a few different takes or just even some sports psychologists or therapists. I think in the end, it's in the hands of the player. So thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, and I'll see you in the next video.